I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Come to order.
It looks like his microphone's not working.
Supervisor Wells, you lead us in invocation, please, sir.
I will. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask your blessings on our community, our state, our county, and our world. As we gather together this evening, help us to remember all of your teachings. And although our worlds and our communities are greatly diversified, we are all your children. Hold our hands, give us your love, show us your guidance. Be with each of our service people that are in the field. Be with those who've lost loved ones. Just wrap your arms around us and help us all to do good for our world and our community and our state. We ask your blessings in God's name. Amen. Amen.
Mr. Chairman Lofton, you lead us in the pledge, please.
Would you stand, face the flag, and join me in the pledge, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any proposed changes?
Mr. Chairman, we have one suggestion that we pull item B under committee business, which is the Northern Y revenue sharing discussion. There's been a development since that matter went to the Transportation Committee that we want to try and address before we bring it to the board.
All right. How would the board like to handle this?
Mr. Chairman, I remove for adoption of the agenda with the removal of the item B as the county administrator has noted.
Thank you. For the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second, is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Adopt the agenda as amended. Citizen comments. This is a portion of the meeting reserved for citizen comments on any issue that will not be subject to public hearing. We do not have a public hearing this evening, so we'll go down the list as you signed up. Ms. Phillips.
Michael Hawley.
If we could have your name, Magisterial District, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Yes, sir. So my name is Michael Hawley. It's a pleasure to speak with you tonight. I'm here on behalf of the Clorox Company, and we want to talk to you tonight a little bit about our proposed cat litter manufacturing facility that we're proposing to bring to Frederick County. And we're very excited to talk to you about this tonight because we think this plant builds on our great track record of our company that's operated over 105 years, as well as 25 years here in the Commonwealth of Virginia successfully. We believe that Clearbrook is the ideal and optimal site for this plant because it is going to minimize our carbon footprint and is going to really be the optimal location to reduce truck traffic. The proposed plan actually co-locates the site adjacent to one of our main suppliers. We're actually going to be conveying many of the raw materials from the supplier directly over to the plant rather than trucking that material over across the roads. We believe this is consistent with our approach of do the right thing and matches our sustainability commitment and our sustainability track record. Now, we do want to partner with the community. Clorox has a great track record of partnering with the community in the area of sustainability, giving back to the community through various foundations as well as educational grants. And we look forward to getting to know you and getting to know the community further if the board chooses to move us forward to public hearings tonight, which we encourage you to do so. We know there's a lot of questions about this project. We do have a community meeting that we have scheduled if we choose to move forward. That'll be Tuesday, April the 23rd at the Clearbrook County Fire Department from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. and we look forward to answering any questions that anyone may have at that time. And at this point, I just want to thank you guys for your consideration and urge you to move us forward to public hearings on this matter.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Rick Bronx.
Hello, my name is Rick Brown. I own property in the Back Creek District. I'm here briefly to talk about a proposal of changing industrial land to residential, medium to high density, low cost housing. As we know, low cost housing have pros and cons. It is affordable. Affordability does not always bring in positive attributes. Preston Place is a low cost housing development. which one year had over 711 911 telephone calls. Syrup, Milholland, and other EMT officers have to respond with a police officer, a fire truck, and sometimes the EMT. That is a high demand on the EMT services as well as 911. Middletown, Virginia also have a low-cost housing development. It also have seen a high number of 911 phone calls. That land have a higher production need of being industrial land. You are challenged with trying to balance the budget each and every year for the school system, each and every year for all the budgets. My mother, a retired Frederick County school teacher. Affordable housing is not always easy for teachers. However, me and my wife, we worked 2 jobs to become able to buy a home. This is not a home ownership. This is a rental property development. People can move in with hardly no money down, a cap of $45,000 a year, and you will see more police calls. You will see a high demand on schools. 200 houses. If you take a conservative number of 1.5 child per household, that is almost 300 kids. If you go 200 houses, 200 kids, 400 kids. We very know that the school budget is a very large number in the, the system here. Lenny Milholland needs police officers if the increase goes up. Police officers need automobiles. They need training. They need equipment, fire trucks. All these cost money. We are a limited resource. We do not have any more land that we can create in Frederick County. So what we do have is industrial parkland. It's the ideal place for that. People that want to move low-cost housing development, put it in your backyard and see how you would like it. A lot of the people that are seniors that live on Apple Valley Road embrace, maybe not so much with the tractor trailer every day, but they can deal with that. They don't want police down there. They don't want EMT services down there. I know David Simone don't want to have to go out and build another half school and try to staff it with limited resources because kids cost about $14,000 per household, for the school system. Low-cost housing would not provide that. They said real quickly that every 15 years they go in and gut the place and redo it. If you do that every 15 years, it's going to be a combat zone because it's going to be a mess and they got to redo it. My time's up. Thank you very much, and please do not consider it because planning voted 10-2 against it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Charlie Gardner.
Hey, everybody on the board, nice to see you again. Charlie Gardner, I live back in Clearbrook, and I'm here to oppose anything with Clorox, period. As the gentleman said, they might be a great company, they might give back all this and everything to the community, but I'm going to tell you right now, whatever they take, they could never give back. You could never restore anything that would be taken away from Clearbrook or Brucetown. It's bad enough, I go home every day right now with dusty, lime-filled roads, where the quarry does not honor to keep these roads clean, where they do not clean their trucks off, they do not come out and sweep the roads. So now I'm going to drive underneath a conveyor belt with stuff dropping all over my car. That's even better. That's a really good thought. There's been a lot of things that Karamazoo, quarry, whatever else, they've said all these things they're going to do. They've never held up to them. They said they're going to build this berm so things aren't visible. Well, heck, we got a 200-foot mountain right now that's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. No care to the community if they have to look at that. Or how about in the summertime when it's dusty? It's one thing to have dust on the bottom of the ground, but now you got dust 200 feet in the air to start in the wind. They don't care about the community. This is all about their checkbook, about them making a profit, selling their scrap to Clorox. All this will do is just ruin this community, period. There's other land in this county that if they want to build it there. This has no infrastructure set up for this. It's not prepared for it. No way whatsoever else. It's bad enough right now. We've got Interstate 11 coming. And I say that because everybody knows how bad Route 11 is, and it's only going to get worse. So what are we going to do? Let's compile it with more traffic, more tractor trailers. Our roads are bad enough as they are back through there. 24/7. I know Arthur was talking about, Mr. Bragg was talking about last time. 12 o'clock at midnight, we have tractor trailers blowing through Brucetown, not 25 miles an hour. And like I said, half the police officers, they don't do anything about them. And so now we're going to sit here and we're going to add more to it. You're just going to ruin the community. That's all you're going to do. No more of us being able to sit out on our porches at nighttime, being able to look at the stars because there's not that much light. Let's add a plant where it's going to take away from that. It's bad enough we listen to the quarry all hours of the night with rocks tumbling down their machines and everything else. And now we're going to have odors, we're going to have lights, we're going to have more traffic. And whichever summer intern did their study for them to where it's not going to increase that much traffic or whatever else, that's exactly what it was. It was somebody on a summer intern doing this study for them. Because there's no way they're going to tell me it's only going to increase 0.5%. That's BS. Anyway, please, a heartfelt, do not let this go through. Do not let it ruin our community. I hope we mean more to y'all than that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Jenkins. Chris Jenkins.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board.
Jenkins, pull the mic. Thank you, sir.
My name is Chris Jenkins. I'm the chief of the Clearbrook Volunteer Fire Department. We're not here tonight to either support or express discontent with the new Clorox facility. What we are here for is to express the concerns of the safety of the men and women of the Clearbrook Volunteer Fire Department, the Frederick County Fire and Rescue career staff assigned to Company 13. I attended a meeting in the end of last summer in which a county representative presented future plans to align Brucetown and Hopewell Roads to the intersection of Martinsburg Pike. On November 1st, I attended a second meeting in which Interstate 81 enhancements in the same intersection were discussed. The information provided in these two meetings totally contradicted one another. A week later, another meeting was held at the firehouse involving Chairman DeHaven, Stonewall Supervisor McCann Slaughter, Frederick County Fire and Rescue Chief Denny Lindenberg, representatives from the Fire Department Board of Directors, and myself to discuss the replacement and/or relocation of the firehouse. The construction of a new facility would not only improve the living and working conditions of the staff, but provide a much safer response to emergency incidents. During this meeting, it was expressed that Chairman DeHaven would not support funding to allow this to happen. The safety concerns of this intersection were also discussed at this meeting. Any given day, $500,000 to $700,000 apparatus staffed by the priceless lives of emergency providers are forced to drive into oncoming traffic to congestion. Depending upon the time of day, the majority of these vehicles are larger commercial vehicles such as dump trucks. Even though the stoplight at this location has been updated with signal preemption devices, they are not 100% effective. When the light changes from green back to red prior to our presence at the intersection because of this congestion, it becomes extremely hazardous at times. As you can see by the damage to the trees and utility poles at this intersection, there's no concern by these trucks as the vehicles as they make the turn. It's just a matter of time before one of our apparatus is hit head-on by the reckless behavior. With the opinions that were expressed during these meetings, there's not going to be any changes made at this intersection in the near future. But what should happen is this board should require the proposed Clorox factory and other up-and-coming constructions for our area to contribute to a new building at a more central location. With the operating costs not fully being covered for emergency services provided to the communities now, we cannot afford to build on our own, especially at the growth rate for the area. And as I said before, there seems to not be much willingness to help us financially. This is a chance to rectify this situation. If the Board of Supervisors vote to allow the Clorox facility, force their hand to help us, this is a chance to have one of these big-name corporations that the board continues to approve help our infrastructure and not hinder it. Thank you.
Brenda Fristow.
Chairman DeHaven and board members, I'm Brenda Fristow. I live on Brucetown Road. Thank you for the countless hours you put in to serve our community. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak to you. Clorox wants you to believe that they are the answer to our transportation problem, that we need their revenue. We cannot live without it. They chose us. We should be so thankful. So I ask you, are they really the answer? Do we really need their proffers and revenue? Or will they take us down a course that is far worse than our transportation issues? A course that includes chemical contamination of our groundwater, strip mining, a destructive form of mineral mining, Sodium bentonite released into the air as the clay is heated to the highest temperatures to make their kitty litter. Add to that silica dust and odor, which is detrimental to pregnant women. This is right next door to Clearbrook Park, where over 100,000 men and women and children visit each year. It is within a half a mile of Stonewall Elementary School. The facts are, in January 2017, you decided the course we would take. You put your stamp of approval on a plan that defined who we are and where we are going. The 2035 Comprehensive Plan was a labor of love where the board, the Planning Commission, the Plans and Program Committee, the Blue Ribbon Panel participants, over 45 individuals and groups with the public got together and decided who we are as a county and where we are going to go. Our vision, ensuring the quality of life of all Frederick County citizens by preserving the past and planning for the future through sound fiscal management. Core values such as a government concerned with long-range planning protects our rural heritage and directs its future growth through the planned infrastructure. This land that Clorox has targeted, remember, they chose us, is designated as Clearbrook and Brucetown Rural Community Center. Nothing about this endeavor by Clorox to relocate in our rural community center is part of our strategic plan. It goes against every statement in the 2035 Comprehensive Plan. A rural community center is defined as centers consisting of small lot residences and commercial uses typical of a village. What I don't see in our strategic plan is a 50-acre footprint of a manufacturing plant. Do you know that Clorox closed a kitty litter plant in Rindge, Georgia in 2001? What are we going to do with a vacant kitty litter manufacturing plant if that happens again? Strip mining, I don't see that in there. Silica dust being pumped out into the air, causing pollution and odor. Chemical contamination of our groundwater. The possibility of pollution for each of our 5 human senses, sight, smell, touch, hearing, and taste, our water. I ask you to vote no. Stick to your community plan, not Clorox's. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Richard Kennedy.
My name is Richard Kennedy with the Top of Virginia Regional Chamber, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of both ladies and gentlemen here. The chamber voices the local chamber here voices its support of business and development in our region and encourage the Board of Supervisors to set a public hearing on a comprehensive plan amendment to explore this economic development opportunity. I also would like to take this time to read a letter on behalf of the state, the Virginia State Board Chamber here, and it goes as follows: to the Frederick County Board of Supervisors. The Virginia Chamber of Commerce is the state's largest business advocacy organization with more than 26,000 members. As the voice of business, we are committed to ensuring that government policies and actions are developed in a way that encourages economic growth and job creation, along with a dynamic and vibrant economy. It is for these reasons that we write to you to express our support for the Clorox Company expanding the presence in the Commonwealth of Virginia and into Frederick County. In addition to statewide economic benefits, we believe Clorox's planned investments in Frederick County will greatly benefit the local economy, the local workforce, and the county's prospects for future growth. It is our understanding that the Clorox plant will generate $192 million in economic impact, along with 100 well-paying jobs with impressive benefits. Over its 105-year history, Clorox has shown a strong commitment not only to its employees, but also to the environment. In just the past year alone, Clorox was recognized as Glassdoor's 2019 Best Places to Work in the United States, CR Magazine's 2018 100 Best Corporate Citizens, Barron's #7 Most Sustainable Companies in the U.S., and #1 most sustainable company among consumer packaged goods, and Industry Week's top U.S. manufacturer. Since its inception in 1980, the Clorox Company Foundation has donated more than $111 million to K-12 education, the arts, and food security. Landing a Fortune 500 company with this strong of a business and environmental record is a win for Virginia, but more importantly, a win for Frederick County, the local workforce, and the local economy, and your region's future economic development and recruitment efforts. We hope you'll agree and will vote yes to support the Clorox efforts. Signed, Barry Duvall, President and CEO of the Virginia State Chamber. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Arthur Bragg.
My name's Arthur Bragg. I'm from the Stonewall District. And thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board members, for the opportunity to address this again about the proposed change to the comprehensive plan to offer Clorox a new facility in the Brucetown Community Center. Last month, I spoke against such, and since that time, many enlightening developments have reinforced my opposition. Of interest is the approach Clorox now asks for a community residents meeting after many positive results from meetings with Frederick County officials. Quite late to ask for such a meeting now. They talk proffers, then present the proffers at a community meeting before going to Frederick officials should have been the plan. At your March meeting, I presented you with a signature petition of over 130 opposed. I could, if time permitted, have gotten another 100. Clorox is short-sighted if they think the labor market is plentiful in this area. Two local facilities, Procter & Gamble and Amazon, are experiencing hiring problems. It's interesting that SWSA will offer Clorox water and sewer while the rural areas around the Clearbrook area are denied such. Clorox needs to look elsewhere. This planned facility will help destroy our Brucetown Rural Community Center. Our countryside landscape has now been destroyed by Carmoose, with 24 hours, 7 days of noise and a light show every night, and the beautiful Carmoose Mountain, which I think is approaching 300 feet. I invite the board members to visit and experience the destroyed Brucetown Road caused by Carmoose traffic. And thanks to the chief of the Clearbrook Fire Department, he has addressed the safety issue, which I will not go into. But I want to share with you 2017 traffic count from VDOT to the quarry, 97,740 vehicles. That, I gave them 362 days. I gave him 3 days for Christmas. And to Sir John's Road, 6,935. This was an eye-opener. To Clark County from Route 11, 90,127 in 261 days. I took out the weekends. And now you want to add from Clorox 86,400 tractor and trailers and 36,500 cars, and planned expansion is quite possible. With the Ball Diamond parking lots being destroyed, all that traffic will be forced to use Brucetown Road, and at the Winter Wonderland Light Show, add another 15,000 vehicles. How much do you expect a 2-lane narrow road to carry? Realignment of the Brucetown Hope Road is not the answer, proffer or not. Winchester Frederick MPO transportation realignment cost is $16,042,500. Carmoose needs a direct entrance exit to Route 11. Any supervisor that would vote to send this forward to public hearing over the organized and legitimate objections of the citizens before you tonight will certainly not receive a supporting vote from us at the election polls. I plead with the board to vote no. Those opposed, I'd like for them to stand, and thank you for your time.
Laura Gerald.
Good evening. My name is Laura Jarrell, and I'm a resident of the Opequon District. I spoke at the last meeting, and I'm going to try not to make a habit out of this, but there's a myth, I think, that needs to be addressed. Also, I want to say my kids go to Bass Hoover, and they are here again with us tonight, representing. There seems to be a misconception that retirees are the only ones on a fixed income, and that a tax increase would somehow impact them more than others. I would like to suggest that in reality, most of us are on a fixed income. If your monthly income doesn't change from month to month, you're on a fixed income. I am on a fixed income. We all have unplanned expenses that affect our budget. Very rarely do budgets play out the way we plan them. Our kids sometimes need expensive medication or require ongoing health care services. In our family, we have both. I also have a kid who goes through shoes like they're disposable. As parents, we sacrifice a lot for the sake of our children, and we're willing to do it, and we want to do it. One, because they are our children, and two, because it is our job as a community to not burden them with problems they will have to solve in the future because of decisions made today. Nothing good comes without sacrifice. I don't necessarily relish the thought of my living expenses increasing. Gas is now up to $2.65 a gallon, and I'm sure we all feel that. But I understand the vital role that the public schools play in our community and in my own kids' education. You may say, they aren't my kids, or I don't have any kids in the school system. Maybe remember that these kiddos will be your future healthcare providers. They will also be our future government officials, teachers, skilled tradespeople. Providing for our kids' education is the best way we can ensure their success and the success of generations to come. I encourage you to really listen and represent all of your constituents, not just the ones who may share your personal point of view. Please fund our schools and give our kids the very best shot at success. Thank you.
Mark Georgiana.
Good evening. My name is Mark Georgiana. I live down on Rocky Ford Road in Brucetown, and I'm here to address the traffic problems on Brucetown Road. And I think it's great that they're going to convey material to the Clorox plant, and they're making efforts to bring stuff in by rail car for product. But at the end of the day, the trucks leaving the plant carrying the kitty litter will be truck traffic and not, I don't believe, rail traffic. And Brucetown Road can't take any more truck traffic. I mean, it's in bad shape. I think we need to look at some alternatives. It's a little bit more about me. I spent 26 years with Carmoose, from Carmoose back to W.S. Fry. I was operations manager for Strasburg and Clearbrook for 15 years. I left there in 2014. About 8 years ago, we came to the county and the VDOT, and we talked about relocating the entrance from Brucetown Road over to Route 11. At that time, the concern was we got the convenience site, the ball fields, we got Stonewall Elementary. We really don't need another entrance on Route 11. Well, the convenience site's gone. The ball fields are soon to follow. Maybe that's the time to look at that again. If you took the quarry traffic off of Brucetown Road, then maybe the other traffic wouldn't be such an impact to the community. I got to tell you, it's a real bummer. Get up on a Saturday morning, wash your car, armor all your tires, first trip to town, go past the quarry, your car's dirty again. And the sad part is they can manage that. Before I left in 2014, we put in a $200,000 truck wheel wash. It's automated, it sprays the trucks. We paved the road out to the scales. We bought a street sweeper, big street vacuum truck sweeper, had a guy dedicated to run it. That was his job. He either cleaned 2 times a day or 20 times a day, whatever it took to clean the streets. I haven't seen that street sweeper run, well, it hasn't been this year, wasn't last year, maybe 2017. So by moving the road over to Route 11, it does 2 things. It helps the truck traffic, and it gives Carmoose a little longer private driveway that they can help manage themselves to keep the road clean. And one thing that I think, you know, they've been here for 60 years, and they were a great part of my life. But community sustainability isn't an entitlement, no matter how long you're here. It's something that you earn, something that you manage, and something that you work for. And I think everybody in this room, we all know that the quarry's never going to be our best neighbor, but they are our neighbor. The one thing I think the quarry's lost track of is they need to be the best neighbor they can be. And so let's consider this road thing, because I think that would be a huge impact to the community of Brucetown to get some of this truck traffic off of the highway. Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Ken
sir.
Burcham.
Good evening. I'm Kenneth Burcham in the Stonewall District. I'm here to express my concern about the Carmeuse and the kitty litter, that where are they going to dump all this stuff, and where's the money coming from for the roads? They're terrible. And if you ever drive down that way, I hope you do, because if you see it now, it's going to be even worse. We don't want another Avtex to deal with there, so I think we better really consider this kitty litter. I don't know where the byproducts or the waste products are going to be handled. I'll have to listen to that and see what's brought up at the next meetings. But who's going to keep the roads up? Lands, it hasn't been done for a long time, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be done, because we've got places that you can almost hide a Volkswagen in, right at the traffic light. And then not only that, I noticed they're putting new poles up, but we're going to have a lot more room at that entrance to Brucetown Road if we go down this road, and I hope we don't. Our fire company, I'll tell you one thing, those guys really work themselves to death trying to keep the vehicles out of the way so that they can get to a fire. I've seen it happen, and an accident on Route 11, going to tie things really bad, and then you get up to the school, man, you can't get out of there at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, getting into Winchester, getting through that way. It's a bear. You need about 8 lanes in order to even get traffic moving. So I think this is going to be a bad move if we go that way. I know and I used to deliver freight over in Frederick years ago, and they had a Clorox place over there. And I didn't see much action going on because it looked like everything was dead around it. Now, I know it's changed, guys were there the other week. But if you got bad water in the ground, you're going to find out we're going to be leaving there, and then who's going to be paying the taxes and that type thing. We got some expensive homes in that area. I'm not one of them. But if the water's bad, then everything's bad. You got to have clean water. Where's the waste going to be going? If it goes down to Opeka, then that's going to go on down the valley. So we don't need that. And don't forget, Avtex is still cleaning up their mess. And we had to have that plant for the war, for the parachutes. So we don't need this. The kitty litter is not important to us. Think about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Greg McFarland.
I'm Greg McFarland, Stonewall District, and to say it bluntly, we don't want Clorox. The 2 gentlemen that were here, the one for Clorox and the one for the chamber, they have their interests, we have our own. Their job is to sit here and tell you how rosy everything's supposed to be, how great it's going to be for you. You're going to have tax dollars. You'll build 15 new schools. Everything's going to be perfect. I guarantee you, back when Carmeuse was standing here, they didn't tell you when they was asking to put that new plant in that there's going to be a 300-foot mountain that you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your lives. I guarantee not one of them ever mentioned that. And I guarantee you not one of y'all even thought about asking it. That's the kinds of things that's going to happen when Clorox puts their plant in. There's going to be things that are happening that you'll never know. And not only that, one car, one truck, bull. Everyone here knows that when you have a plant like that, you're going to have multiple vehicles coming in. All of them aren't going to be truckload. When you're shipping out stuff, you're going to send out LTL, you're going to send out FedEx, you're going to send out truckload. You're going to have thousands of vehicles coming in and out of there. You're not going to have just 1 or 2 or 3, and no matter how much rail traffic they try to use or how many conveyors they put in, all they're going to do is create more problems. Okay, what are the problems? Carmoose has got to now supply them. So guess what Carmoose is going to do 5 years from now? They're going to come in here and sit in front of you all, and they're going to say, listen, we got a supply we can't meet. We need to expand. We need to expand. And you're all going to be sitting there and put in a position where, okay, do we sit there and try to help this company? And all of a sudden, 5 years from now, that 300-foot mountain is going to be a 900-foot mountain. And some enterprising young man over here is going to say, hey, let's put a snowshoe up there and go put a ski up there. But no, that's what's going to happen because that's the way things go. I'm a businessman. I've had my own company for 15 years in Richmond. I have a company here now building and stuff like that. Nothing ever goes as you plan them to go, and nothing is ever as rosy as me or someone else sitting here telling you it is. It doesn't work like that. There's always things that these gentlemen want to hide. I understand that. They're spokesmen for their side. I'm spokesman for mine. If you think that there's not going to be other problems that's created down the road from a Clorox manufacturing plant that's going to have God knows what kind of chemicals in there leaching into the groundwater, I know they have all this treatment and all that stuff, but you find me one plant in the United States that hasn't had spills, contamination, I'd like to know what it is because they don't exist. Those things will happen. They happen all the time. And that close to the water in Opequon, which we're what, shortage of water down in that area? Everybody's wanting to put another water filtration system in down there. Well, guess what? You better have a good water filtration because what you're doing is going to be having chlorine and everything else going into it. You better be able to think before you put them in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Linnell McFarland.
Good evening. I don't know about all of you, but I feel it's highly suspicious that the day before the Board of Supervisors meeting, Mr. Hawley of the Clorox Company got a front page glowing article in the Star listing all the wonderful economic ways that a huge industrial facility will benefit everyone. That's kind of what I call spin and manipulation. But obviously this project has been in the works for a long time behind closed doors, where probably there's been some pockets being padded. And all of this has happened behind the backs of the residents of the community that it's going to truly impact. The residents that chose to build and live in the Brucetown, Clearbrook area chose that because it's a rural area, not industrial. So, you know, the big question is, if you drive out there, who already paid to have enough natural gas lines put in across Mr. Harry White's property that could possibly support an industrial facility when the land is still zoned rural? So this doesn't really follow the correct timeline, as Mr. Author was telling us. This proposed amendment benefits Carmoose, the Clorox Company, Mr. Harry White, and any of the pockets that were padded behind the scenes. The decisions were made a long time ago that have allowed Carmoose to damage our community, destroy our roadways, cause almost constant noise pollution, significant light pollution, and permanently mar the landscape. Please remember that every single decision that you make will have countless and long-term consequences. So let me leave you with these thoughts. We don't need more employment opportunities. We can't fill openings in the industrial area now. The road infrastructure in Brucetown cannot handle the current stress of the industrial traffic, much less adding anything to it. And I'll cut myself off there.
Thank you.
But thank you.
Amanda Feaster.
Good afternoon. So I spoke here, I'm Amanda Feaster, by the way, from the Shawnee District. I spoke here a few weeks ago regarding the possible tax hike of 4 cents and how that's going to impact education especially. So I read some of the letters to the editor and some of the social media posts, and surprisingly my head didn't explode, but I did see a commonality, and that being, what about those of us on a fixed income? Teacher here, so fixed income. But not only that, I wanted to highlight some of the most important staff members in our county schools, and that's our support staff. That's our bus drivers, our custodial staff, our cafeteria workers, our secretarial staff, and our teaching assistants. They are the epitome of a fixed income after insurance and taxes. Most of them average bringing home around $300 a week, except they aren't retired. They're trying to raise families, put food on the table, and pay for mortgage and other educational costs. I cannot express how important and how detrimental this decision is for our future. One of the things that this budget is earmarked is ensuring that every school in the county has an SRO. In 2019, I don't feel like I should have to explicitly explain why it's necessary for every one of our schools to have a sheriff's deputy in it. I think we read the paper, we look at the news, we know what the consequences can be when schools are not prepared. So choosing to not step out of your comfort zone and open this up to public hearing again and discussing this tax hike, you're effectively saying the safety is not a concern. It's more important that this tax rate stay low. No one wants to step on any toes. And that scares me as a teacher for my safety. It scares me as a parent for my son's safety. And it's very, very important that we look at funding our future, and not just for tomorrow, but for 20 years. The days of cutting the budgets to build new schools so that when they open, we're having to haul in modular classrooms are a joke. It's saving, it's being penny wise and dollar stupid. I mean, I understand that no one wants to raise taxes. I don't. I'm on a fixed income, and I love what was said before about the fixed incomes we are all on. But it's time to fund our futures, focus on safety, and it's not just education, it's fire and EMS. If the board wants to welcome these corporations, the board needs to make sure that our public safety and our education is properly funded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Heidi or David Young?
Hi. Good evening. I am Reverend Heidi David Young, and I'm from the Gainsborough District. My maiden name was David. Looks like 2 different names. My dear sirs and ladies, if we have to spend such large sums every year on guns, roads, bridges, dams, and countless similar items to ensure the peace and prosperity of our city, why should not much more be devoted to the poor, neglected youth? Martin Luther, a 16th century Christian theologian and pastor, wrote these words to the government leaders of his day 500 years ago, advocating for public school funding for all children, which did not exist at the time. His words echo, do they not, across the centuries to us today. I stand here today with similar concerns, not only for public school funding, but for fire and rescue funding and sheriff's office funding. They're seemingly in danger here of becoming poor and neglected as well. I stand here tonight with fire and rescue, who are in need of funding for 17 positions they have requested that are not currently funded in the county budget. I stand here tonight with the sheriff's office, who are in need of funding for 14 requested positions not currently funded in the current county budget. I stand here with teachers, administrators, and support staff of Frederick County Public Schools, requesting funding for 5 teachers, 4 school counselors, 2 bus drivers, and 1 athletic trainer, as well as other additional personnel, not to mention school capital project funding. Key piece of that is 13 replacement buses for our children to ride on that are not currently funded in the current county budget. As a proud resident of Frederick County, I stand with those who serve our community to make it a safe, peaceful, caring, and quality place to live. I am deeply, deeply concerned, however, and frustrated that I have to stand here at all. The current path we're on is self-defeating and will make our fire and rescue, our sheriff's office, and public schools less effective. Dare I even say poor and neglected. It is time to change course. I ask you today, change course for the good of us all. As I began with a quote from Martin Luther, I will end with one as well. When demanded by the religious authorities of his day to renounce his deeply held, biblically based convictions about life and faith and risk charges of heresy and excommunication, he responded by saying, "Here I stand. I can do no other. God help me. Amen." I find comfort and strength in his witness as I say today, here I stand with the people of Frederick County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Meredith. Mary Meredith.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. I am speaking to you from the Stonewall District. I am actually currently raising a 3rd-generation member of the Brucetown Clearbrook community, and I am urging you to vote against changing that rural piece of land, that uniqueness that Clearbrook and Brucetown has, and making it an industrial zone. Because then what am I going to have to worry about my kid playing outside? I commend Clorox for trying to have 0 emissions to monitor their waste. However, it is not what Clearbrook and Brucetown need. Part of the charm of growing up there as a child was the rural community and the tight-knit group of going to church and knowing everybody in that area. And if this one piece of land is changed to be an industrial zone, what's next? How many pieces of land is the quarry purchasing from people within this area in the hopes that if this one piece is overturned and made an industrial piece, what will follow? I agree that our roads, they need to be overhauled. We have semi-trucks driving down Shady Creek Road. It is a dirt road. It is not even paved. In the 35 years I've been alive, it is not paved. And we have traffic driving down there that is not capable of handling that. The fire and the EMS, I've seen them try to get out of Brucetown. It is very, very difficult and very, very hazardous for anybody trying to move over when they respond to a call. So I urge you to please strongly consider not approving this comprehensive plan amendment and not making this rural piece of property an industrial zone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Hall.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Hall. I come to you wearing a few hats tonight in support of the proposed Apple Valley Road Workforce Housing Project. I'm a Frederick County resident, a homeowner in the Shawnee District. I serve as Director of Community Engagement at United Way of Northern Shenandoah Valley, where I lead the Valley Assistance Network. I'm also a member of the steering committee of the Northern Shenandoah Valley Housing Coalition. Through both personal experiences and working with clients each day, I can tell you our community is facing an affordable housing crisis. The acronym ALICE is used to describe households that are asset limited, income constrained, and employed. These families are almost always cost burdened and spend more than 30% of their income on housing. Alice is employed in critical jobs in our community, like manufacturing, healthcare, food service, and law enforcement. Even while working, they struggle each month to make ends meet. The number of decent, affordable homes continues to decrease in our community. Meanwhile, all the new luxury developments are nice, yes, but well above fair market rent. You all want to bring new industry to our community, but I ask you, where are these employees going to live? Manufacturing companies are desperate for workers, but workers need an affordable place to live. Workforce housing is a relatively new term for our community. It's not the same as affordable housing. This housing project would be affordable to families who make between $16 and $24 an hour. For a family of 4, that's an income ranging from $33,000 a year to $49,000 a year. Now bear with me as I give you some numbers to put this into perspective. The average Frederick County salary is $44,000 a year. The starting salary for a Frederick County Sheriff's deputy is $39,000 a year. They need workforce housing and a big raise. $43,000 a year is the starting salary for a teacher in Frederick County. I know this because my husband is one. Now imagine that teacher being a single mom of 3 kids. She would bring home roughly $2,400 a month after taxes and insurance. For that family to live comfortably and pay 30% of her income on rent, she would need to find a place under $800, certainly no more than $1,200 a month. I can tell you that is impossible. There are no single-family homes in the county available under $1,500 a month, and fair market rent for a 4-bedroom home is a whopping $1,700 a month. But the proposed housing project you're voting on would bring over 200 rental units with an average rent of $1,000 a month. On behalf of my clients and on behalf of Alice, I urge you to amend this comprehensive plan. This is a critical first step to provide affordable housing opportunities for our teachers, nurses, police officers, and families. The well-being of our community and future generations depend on it.
Thank you.
Joseph Jablonski.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Jablonski. I am the volunteer coordinator for Valley Assistance Network, a program of United Way of Northern Shenandoah Valley. I am a resident of the Red Bud District. I am here today to speak in support of the Blackburn Property Workforce Housing Project on Apple Valley Road. As a recent transplant to the county and someone whose work lets me witness the day-to-day struggles of Frederick County residents. My wife and I recently moved to Frederick County. I fell in love with the Shenandoah Valley almost immediately, and not merely for its vistas. The area is economically growing and is not as costly compared to my former home of Long Island, New York. We were ultimately brought here, in fact, by the outrageously expensive rental market near New York City, stifling local economy. After several months of diligently searching across all public sources, and with the help of a real estate agent, we felt ourselves lucky to find a 2-bedroom unit at $995 a month. This seemed like a deal to us. As I began to work with the local community through the Valley Assistance Network, I realized how wrong I really was. My position as volunteer coordinator means that I oversee the day-to-day interactions my volunteers have with real people for whom housing is a real crisis. Working families are diligently searching for homes that fit their budget, only to find that few to any exist in the local area. The apartment we found, my wife and I, is just barely affordable for our middle-class income, meaning that for the large percentage of Frederick County families I and my volunteers speak with, it would be cost prohibitive. And it is showing in my office. Our office served 600 families last year with 2,200 referrals to different agencies for assistance. Over 70% of those referrals were for housing insecurity. To me and my wife, our apartment felt like a needle in a haystack. However, for most of Frederick County's working families, our rent cost would merely be a painful needle in their budget. Jennifer Hall spoke about the larger experience of working families. What I would like to speak about is the day-to-day experience of home seekers and the importance of their well-being to the county. If in months of searching the surrounding Winchester area in Frederick County, where most of the working population resides, we did not find something more affordable than our current residents, then I can only imagine a real-life experience of new transplants like me without support systems who need to find a place quickly, or other people in the county that may be living permanently in at-risk places, such as motels or even on the street. Our local government is entrusted to ensure the well-being of its residents, whether they have been working here for decades or are like me, recent movers attracted by local growth. The increasing rent in our area and the lack of housing for working families are not merely numbers on a page. They are a consuming crisis of those struggling in our community, and it will turn into an economic liability if it's not addressed. Because of increasing rent, families integral to our economy have to make impossible decisions. However, the Workforce Housing Project, along with helping support the economic development in the area, can show to citizens of this county that its local government supports their well-being. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Evan Wyatt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Evan Wyatt with Greenway Engineering, representing the Blackburn Property Workforce Housing Comprehensive Policy Plan Amendment. As you know, in December, the board voted to allow the CPPA to move forward outside of the annual process in which you typically consider these requests. The CPPA is a discussion item tonight, therefore we're not provided an opportunity to present the CPPA and information we believe that's important for this request. However, following the discussion, the board will initiate an action to either consider sending this forward to public hearing or not to send it forward. As we've heard, workforce housing is a relatively new land use concept for the county, and we believe it needs to be thoroughly discussed and vetted. However, the appropriate process to do this is through a public hearing at the comprehensive policy plan level to ensure that we consider all information that will be important in shaping the policies for this land use. These policies, of course, would set the expectations for future rezoning applications, which would be the next step in the land development process. So we respectfully request the board allow this process to continue by directing staff to advertise the CPPA request for public hearing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sean Graber.
Sean Graber, Back Creek District. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you this evening. I am asking that you do not move forward with the budget as is presented this evening. I am asking that you look at this budget and that you trim the fat so that we do not experience, or my family does not experience, my 5th real estate tax increase in as many years. You see, 5 tax increases will increase my real estate taxes a little over 33.5% in just 5 years. We've heard from many folks this evening that affordable housing is hard to come by. By raising taxes, not only does it make it harder on those folks who own land in Frederick County, but it also makes it hard for those folks who are renting, as the rents subsequently have to rise as real estate taxes rise. We are also disenfranchising our children as we continue to raise rates and spend money. Not only have we raised real estate taxes, and not only is our personal property tax 3rd highest in the region, or greater part of the state, but we have increased our spending. Last year, we spent $14.5 million just to service interest on debt for schools. It is proposed that we will spend $16.7 million in this proposed budget. Should we continue to go down this road, we will spend well in excess of $140 million just to service interest on the debt. I contend that we slow down and take a look at our spending a little bit. Should we pay as we go and pay off our debt a little, and then as we need schools and teacher raises, we could pay for those without having a tax increase. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, that's all that we have signed up.
Thank you. All righty. Adopted the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
As amended.
Amended.
Thank you. And a second? Second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Consent agenda as amended is adopted. Board of Supervisors comments, are there any? Thank you. All right, committee appointments, I think we have 2. We have the remainder of a term for the Henry Regional Library Board. Have we advertised that?
We are waiting on a recommendation from the library board. Typically, they will provide names of candidates for us, but we are in need.
Thank you, sir. And Extension Leadership Back Creek?
Yes, sir. I do have someone who has submitted a application, and I'll be forwarding that to the county administrator's office to be distributed.
Thank you, sir. All right. Committee business, Code and Ordinance Committee. The request is this ready for public hearing?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Code and Ordinance Committee met on March the 28th. We have 2 amendments to our Frederick County Code that the committee wanted to forward for a public hearing, and we recommended approval for both of them. So the first one is a proposed revision to update the county's adoption of the Virginia statewide fire prevention code to add, delete, and update definitions as appropriate, update requirements relating to fire hydrants, and make provision for the fire personnel accessible key boxes for certain structures. The committee has forwarded the ordinance to the Board of Supervisors for public hearing with a recommendation of approval, and I would so move.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We'll forward that to public hearing.
Thank you. And the second one is a proposed amendment that would restrict parking on county-owned or county-controlled property to parking that is consistent with any posted signs on the property. The new subsection would further impose a fine for a violation of such parking restrictions. The committee forwarded the proposed ordinance amendment to the Board of Supervisors for public hearing with a recommendation of approval, and I would so move.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. We'll forward that one also to public hearing.
That concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Transportation Committee, we removed from our agenda. Proposed amendments to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 155, Taxation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Batting on this one. This is a proposed amendment to the Frederick County Code to increase our transient occupancy tax from the current rate of 2.5% to 3.5%. By way of background, on February 26th of this year at one of the board's work sessions, we had a presentation from Mr. Justin Kearns, the Executive Director of the Frederick Winchester Tourism Office. He did a presentation on destination marketing, and as part of that presentation, he made a request to the board to increase our transient occupancy tax percentage 1% to 3.5%, with that additional money going to fund the destination marketing effort. At your work session on March 6th, the Board and Finance Committee discussed the possible 1% increase. And as you may recall, the ability for the county to increase this rate was enabled by legislation adopted by the General Assembly during the 2016 session. Any revenue generated by raising the transient occupancy tax rate above 2% shall be designated and spent solely for tourism and travel, marketing of tourism, or initiatives that increase occupancy at lodging properties and generate tourism revenues in the locality. In order for the county to increase the transient occupancy tax rate, the county code must be amended to reflect this increase, and a public hearing is required, which we are holding tonight. The proposed increase is included as part of the FY 19-20 budget, and therefore, in order for this proposed increase to be included as part of the budget, the county code amendment must be in place prior to budget adoption. So at the conclusion of the public hearing tonight, Mr. Chairman, staff would be seeking board adoption of the proposed ordinance amendment, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Anyone? Hearing none, thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to speak concerning the proposed increase to the transient occupancy tax rate in the coming fiscal year? That'd be fiscal year 19-20. Anyone? Anyone at all? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. How would the board like to handle this?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the proposed amendment to increase the current rate from 2.5% to 3.5%.
Heard the motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Anyone? Supervisor McCarthy.
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. All right. Bring us to adoption of the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget. Supervisor Slaughter.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion that we approve Budget Resolution Option A, which is included in our packet. Both budget resolutions, as you know, are of the same dollar amount, so there is no change. And also would like to comment that, and I suppose I should do this after the motion regarding some of the provisions in that adoption.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Would you like to finish your comment?
Well, I know there's been several comments this evening regarding the budget, and I would just like to say that this budget does provide for funding for SROs so that there will be an SRO in all of our schools. I know there was a comment this evening by one of the citizens, so I would like to let you know that is a part of this budget.
All right. Thank you. Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Supervisor Trout.
Unfortunately, as many of you who were here at our last meeting, you know that we need more funds for our budget. It's a known fact. Unfortunately, this board is not supportive of a tax increase for this year, even though our constituents are. I'm disappointed. However, in light of this fact, I will be supporting tonight's budget proposed by Supervisor Slaughter because it does keep our property tax rate at 61 cents, which allows us to experience a natural increase in revenue, which does fund some of our county needs. It's not enough, but it is something, and it's a step in the right direction. For now, this is the best case scenario. We continue to welcome your feedback, and if you are unhappy with the actions of this board, I would just like to remind you that elections are in November. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion, anyone? Supervisor Lofton.
Mr. Chairman, although there has been a lot of work, a lot of discussion, a lot of debate about this budget, I cannot support this budget for several reasons. Number one, as I've expressed before, the tax rate on airplanes is something I cannot digest. I cannot consider that to be an option at this point. Also, as you know, I've been a big proponent of categorical funding for the schools. I think this is an opportunity that's being missed, and although this budget does have a lot of good, I will not be voting for this budget.
Supervisor Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, a number of you came and spoke, and today a number of you have spoken on this budget. I'd like to just respond to a couple comments that were made. To the teacher who said that she was having to work on a cart, I empathize with her. And 2 years ago, this board voted to go and appropriate $9.2 million to add an extension to Millbrook to provide extra classrooms so that she would not have to be on a cart. My wife used to teach on a cart. It is not fun, and so we're trying to solve that problem. But I would suggest to that teacher that, ask the school board why they did not take the monies to do an extension for Millbrook. On teacher salaries, everybody wants a pay raise, and I fully understand that. Our household income is approximately $71,000 a year. Loudoun County's income is approximately $129,000 a year. Put a different way, Loudoun is about 82% more than Frederick County, or Frederick County is 45% less than Loudoun County. Within a 30-mile radius, you have counties that have done a higher item. And if you could put on the screen, thank you. The counties that are adjacent to Frederick County include Clark County, Shenandoah County, Warren County, and Winchester City. Within 30 miles, you have all of the above plus Fauquier County, Loudoun County, and Page County. As you can see by the slide, the blue line represents Frederick County. And over that time frame, we are higher than the average of the counties that are within 30 miles. Next, please. The screen in front of you is the same screen, but the red line represents the adjacent counties that I mentioned earlier, which were Clark, Shenandoah, Warren, and Winchester. As you can see, we are above the salary levels of those.
Next slide, please. And this slide here shows the cost or the percentage of Frederick County residents as a percentage of what they're paying for a household versus Loudoun County. And although it's hard to see, we, Frederick County, are paying significantly more on a household percentage than Loudoun County. So for those that are concerned about dollars, we as a community are trying to do a good job with the monies that we have. We do not have $129,000 of household income, but we are giving a higher percentage of our salaries too. And just to read off those numbers that you can't see, in Loudoun County for a starting teacher, it's 39% of their income, going up to about 74%. But in Frederick County, this county, it runs between 59% and 92%. That's for a bachelor's degree, and the same is true for master's and doctorates. So recognize that this county is trying to meet some of the requests that are being made. On the school buses, I've talked to the school board, and I would support 13 school buses. This budget has 8 school buses. And we're going to have some additional capital possibly at the end of this year. But you could fund another 5 school buses if there is a slight differential of 0.4% of the total salaries. Or for 1/4%, you can fund 3 buses. So the school board's having to make priorities on what they think is important. And we can agree or disagree on that, but a slight change in certain areas can meet that school bus funding area. Fire and rescue. We as a community recognize that there's a significant need for that. We're trying to work between paid staff and volunteers. As I've said to some others, if we can increase the volunteers, we'll meet that need. If we can't, we're going to have to go with the paid staff. In summary, to meet the requests that are being requested, not funded, would cost another 6 or 7 cents this year. To meet the capital costs of the schools alone would require another 22 cents. That's from their numbers, not mine. And as this county continues to grow, we are going to have to need to raise revenue, which I'm going to advocate from impact fees as opposed to raising it from real estate taxes. However we can work together, we need to do so, but that's something that we collectively need to do to hear each other's side. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Anyone?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to say that I support the dollars in both of these proposals, Resolution A and B, that are in our agenda. I don't support either of these resolutions as written. But just shy of a year ago, we sat here for 2 hours as residents of Frederick County came before us and said, our school is falling into disrepair, maintenance isn't being done, things aren't being maintained. I got a landslide of emails and phone calls from constituents saying, at the very least, we need to maintain what we have as we move forward to build for the future. I happen to agree with that. If you buy something, you maintain it for as long as you can, get the most out of it. I'm a very strong proponent of that. On the other hand, option B in this budget resolution, the categorical funding, it goes beyond that. It categorically funds all those different areas of the school board budget. I don't know that we need to necessarily micromanage the school board's budget. I don't think that that's something that we necessarily want to get into the business of. However, the constituents that I've spoken to have said, at the very least, protect the infrastructure that we've paid for at this point, maintain the infrastructure that we paid for. So I would be an advocate for doing a hybrid of these 2 resolutions in which we don't fully categorically fund the school's budget, that we fund this general budget as presented with a line item categorical funding strictly for the maintenance of our schools so that we maintain the investments that the county citizens have worked hard for all their lives, invested their money in, and would like to see maintained for as long as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion, anyone?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Wells.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. Supervisor Trout, the last meeting, I believe, brought up the concern that when we come to a budget meeting like this, we haven't had much time for citizen input. And I thought about what she said. You know, when you throw a stone in the water, sometimes it makes ripples and it makes you uncomfortable. And it kind of made me uncomfortable, and I thought about that, and I'm working very hard to see if there isn't a way to get more citizen input on our budget where you don't come to this meeting and think, well, it's already a done deal. That being said, it's not easy because we don't always know what our state funding is going to be for the schools and for the county and that kind of thing. So it's tough to talk about numbers until almost the last minute. But I think we do need to take a look at new ways of getting our citizens involved. Many of our current supervisors already use the town hall meeting method, and some semblance of that maybe for the board to look at might be a good thing. I see our citizens in a love-hate relationship. They love our schools. They love our sheriff's department. They love our fire departments. They love our low taxes. And they love all our employees on a daily basis, service our needs, our demands, and for our day-to-day services. And they become accustomed to all of the above and expect all of the above. But they hate to pay the taxes to support that service. A good conservative is going to tell you, and I've heard it said, hey guys, nothing's free. Somebody pays for it. And they're absolutely right. So services cost money. And you do have to pay for them. I take it as my responsibility to take your money that you entrust this board with and me with and spend it as wisely as I possibly can. If you don't like that, you certainly have the right to vote me in a different direction. We cannot continue to refuse to address our critical needs. And you've heard all of those critical needs tonight. When I hear the comments that taxes will break the backs of our citizens, especially those on fixed incomes, I have to look at Clark County, City of Winchester, Warren County, whose all their tax rates are higher than ours. And apparently those folks are figuring out a way to make it happen. I don't see a great influx of those folks moving out of Warren County and Clark County and everywhere else and heading for the highlands where there's lower taxes. They seem to be staying where they're at. I've spoken to some of them, and like I say, they've figured it out. We owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to Frederick County. We can't remain in the past. We have to look at the future. We have to stand up and look it straight in the face and say, how do we resolve that? Are there things where we can save money? I'm sure. But right now, I think when you say raise taxes, we're not talking about inflating a tax budget that's been wild and crazy for many, many years. We're talking about trying to level the playing field so that we can at least support the services that we need. And I would support, even though I think we need more, I would support the budget that is presented. Thank you.
Further discussion, anyone? The motion is to adopt Resolution A. Supervisor McCarthy?
No.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
No.
Supervisor Dunn?
Nay.
Chair votes aye. Supervisor Trout, I'm sorry.
Aye.
I'd already written in your space.
Oh. Good man.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. The budget is adopted. That will bring us to Planning Commission business. Ms. Perkins, CPPA 0218.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a proposed amendment to the 2035 Comprehensive Plan for what was originally CPPA 2 of 18 for the Carter Tract. Now, this amendment proposes to add 109 acres to the sewer water service area, as well as remove 109 acres from the sewer water service area. The amendment also proposes to designate that 109 acres for industrial land uses. Now, the subject property is located on the southern side of Brucetown Road, and it adjoins the existing quarry. If I can direct you to the screen on your left. For reference, you have Brucetown Road, and then here in blue, you have the subject property. And this is the proposed amendment with the addition of the 109 acres and the industrial designation in that blue hatch, and then the removal of the 109 acres from the existing quarry. The text that goes along with this comprehensive plan includes, as I stated, the industrial land use designation for the site, recognition of the road network and improvements that may be identified as necessary for future development. It discusses the relocation of Brucetown Road from its current location and improvements to Brucetown Road. It discusses improvements to Martinsburg Pike and Hopewell Road, and it states that no new access will be on Brucetown Road. Access is only from the quarry. It recognizes the sewer water capacity limitations in that area. It stresses the protection of environmental features, including enhanced riparian buffer, protection of drainage areas, and air quality. It talks about buffering between the industrial uses and the rural community center. It encourages the use of landscaping and distance for screening, and it also encourages the use of rail. Now, a little back history of where this amendment has been so far. The Comprehensive Plans and Programs Committee originally discussed this at their October and November 2018 meeting. The Planning Commission discussed this at their December 2018 meeting and then sent it back to the Comprehensive Plans and Programs Committee for further discussion on transportation and the sewer water service area limits. The Comprehensive Plans Committee discussed this again at their February 2019 meeting, and they endorsed revised text at that meeting that expanded the transportation comments and expectations, the environmental text, additional buffering, and it also revised the sewer water service area limits to that 109 acres that you have before you tonight. The Planning Commission then discussed this at their March 6th meeting, and they did endorse text and SWAZA limits and recommended it be sent to the Board of Supervisors. So with that, staff is seeking direction from the board as to whether this is ready for public hearing. And if it is sent forward to public hearing, staff is seeking direction from the board on the use of the text should versus shall in the amendment. I would note that the Planning Commission did recommend the use of should in the text due to the fact the comprehensive plan is a guiding document. So again, with that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Questions of Ms. Perkins, anyone? Anyone? Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Stonewall.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I have heard the citizens of Stonewall District loud and clear this evening, and I've heard from you, many of you, over the following weeks that we've had prior to this meeting. The citizens who elected me to represent them and to be their voice. Therefore, I move that the board not forward CPPA number 02-18 for public hearing, and that any further consideration of CPPA number 02-18 be ended at this time.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
A second. Discussion. Anyone? Supervisor McCarthy.
Thank you. As Supervisor Slaughter has mentioned, we heard loud and clear from Stonewall tonight, and I tend to be in your camp at the moment. I think there are a lot of concerns with this project that need to be answered. From my perspective, anytime that we look at changing the comprehensive plan, which is a document that we all voted on, set sort of in motion as something that would be a guide for us, there needs to be a clear and convincing benefit that would be overwhelming enough to change the comprehensive plan. That being said, when I came on as a supervisor, I promised my constituents that I would hear all voices before making a decision. I've sort of tipped my hand a little bit as far as what my concerns are, but we've heard from Stonewall. I've gotten emails this week from residents of other districts that are supportive of this. I think that they deserve a chance to be heard, so I will support it going to public hearing and vote nay on Supervisor Slaughter's motion. But I would like to make a couple comments with regard to how I've seen this play out so far. I'm really concerned with the fact that I think the cart got way before the horse on this, and that somehow the governor and a bunch of planners knew about this before any of the folks on this board did, and I think that's wrong. I don't think it's... I don't think it's right for the citizens of Frederick County or any county in our Commonwealth to be strong-armed by political machinations and maneuvers that are splashed over the internet and the news media in order to convince us that, okay, it's already a done deal, we have to move forward. And I feel that that's how things have progressed so far. I think it should start at the grassroots. Everything that happens in our community should be started here. The discussion should have been with the citizens first, with the Board of Supervisors, before the governor announced that this was good for the people of this county. I didn't see him come here and discuss it with us before he decided it was good for the people of the county. So that's my first concern, is that this has been a top-down process rather than a bottom-up process. That being said, I think there are some legitimate questions on both sides that I'd like to see aired. But there are a whole lot of issues that I think need to be clarified before we can move forward with this thing. But I will be voting against Supervisor Slaughter's motion tonight only because I'd like to have this open to public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Wells.
I would just like to tag on to your comments about top-down. Certainly that's not the way that I would like to see it happen. I have personally looked into this, and I continue to hear from county residents that we, the board, keep encouraging growth and expanding housing populations and so forth. Most of that is by right. We really haven't changed any zoning there. But you know, we continue to bring in businesses, which brings in housing, which brings in people, which increases schools, increases police and fire response and needs. And you know, to think that 100 people coming is a great idea, and it gives 100 jobs, but that's 100 new houses or apartments, and that's more children in the school system and so forth. So I'm trying to weigh what we're doing here with the money as we're talking about this budget. I said spend your money wisely, so trying to figure out. I don't know that the dollars and cents will support the infrastructure that's needed. And I just really don't like the idea of changing the comprehensive plan, and I don't like rezoning land where there is already land zoned that could be used for this particular product to be manufactured. So just want to get that out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a big believer in sending things to public hearings for discussion. I've gotten emails, as I'm sure all of us have. I've gotten phone calls, and I've heard people speak tonight. Not all the information that I've heard has been correct to my knowledge, the way things work and the way things are. So to me, it's imperative that we send this to public discussion to find out what is right, what is wrong. This is not an approval of Clorox or any other company. What this is we're saying we have some land that may not be usable for manufacturing industry, and we want to change that land to some that we feel is suitable for manufacturing, which brings in jobs and more income. So as Supervisor McCarthy has said, I think the cart has got before the horse in a number of ways, and I agree with this assessment of the governor's office. But I also agree that people are jumping ahead, assuming that Clorox is going to be the company that occupies that land, when in fact that's not the question tonight. The question tonight is, do we feel like the SWAZA should be changed to incorporate some land that is suitable or could be suitable for manufacturing and industry, for land that is not suitable for manufacturing industry. So again, we've heard some comments tonight. I'd like to see more discussion. I'd like to see more input before we make a decision. So that's why I will vote no on this, because I do think it needs to go to a public hearing.
Further discussion, anyone? Supervisor Dunn.
I spent a lot of time going through this on the pros and the cons. Although the supervisors here know this, just recognize that if the vote is yes tonight, it simply means it goes to public hearing. It then goes back to the Planning Commission for public hearing, comes back to us for a public hearing. If those two are yeses, it then goes back to the Planning Commission for a zoning issue and comes back to us for a zoning issue. The people that made the comments here tonight that are concerned, I'm empathetic with. but I'd like to hear what the response is from Clorox. And so I'm going to end up voting yes to have the discussion continue forward. That does not mean that it's going to be yes in a final product, but it does mean that it will be yes to go forward. The Brucetown Road issue is a significant issue. If there's a way to bring that traffic out to Route 11 and avoid the Brucetown issue, that helps to some degree. If Clorox turns around and says, if the board votes no, and Clorox says to Carmeuse, we still want your product, then the question becomes, how does that product get to Clorox? So if Clorox builds a plant in West Virginia or in Pennsylvania, and they truck the stuff out, how does that change? Clorox is still working as an entity. If you go out there, I mean, you all live there, or many of you do. The eyesore, if you will, is Carmeuse, not Clorox. And so the question I pose is, if the vote is no, but Clorox turns around and says we're going to go and build elsewhere and truck the product, what happens? So I'm going to vote yes to hear the discussion. And for those of you in this audience and for Clorox, both of you, I would encourage you both to sit in a room and the people here that are asking questions, have Clorox respond and listen to what the response is in. You've raised a number of issues, and I'd like to hear that discussion. And to Clorox, I'd encourage you to have a meeting not only from 3 to 7 on a weekday, but have a meeting on a Saturday morning where people that are working can come and hear you as well, and run a forum and let people go and ask the questions that you've asked us, and let Clorox respond to those questions. And if they can't respond and they say they don't know, then give them the chance to come back, and that's where we can have a dialogue to see where we go from there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Trout.
I'm going to echo the sentiments of several of my supervisors. I am going to vote against Supervisor Slaughter's motion tonight to forward this to public hearing. It does not in any way mean that I will be supporting it once it comes to public hearing, but I don't feel that I have enough information tonight to say definitively no to this without at least hearing what Clorox could bring or what could be in that area. Thank you.
Further discussion, anyone?
What are the comments?
Supervisor Slaughter.
I just want to say a few things. With regard to our comprehensive plan document that many of the board members sitting here tonight approved on January 25th, 2017, there were numerous public meetings throughout Frederick County in which we entertained citizen comments and suggestions about the comprehensive plan before we took a formal action to adopt the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan specifically recognizes Brucetown rural community. And in the mission statement, part of our mission statement is that we will be true to the heritage of our rural communities. Again, I will remind you that this area is designated as a rural community center. So if there is a change to our comprehensive plan to change a land use designation from RA to another land use, you are changing the integrity of this land that you have agreed to in the comprehensive plan that should not be changed.
Supervisor Dunn.
One quick comment. I echo the comments of Mr. McCarthy and the governor. The 7 of us will help to make this decision with your input. The governor's comments were inappropriate when they were done. Thank you.
Supervisor Locke.
Mr. Chairman, to respond to Supervisor Slaughter's comments, yes, the comprehensive plan is a guiding document. It is not code, it is not statute. It changes. Every 5 years, we're required to update it. And in those updates, we determined if something has changed, do we need to change our comprehensive plan to indicate what has changed, what is we believe the vision is now. So it's not uncommon. We have made these comprehensive plan amendments before. I do not believe that introduces any anti-integrity against our comprehensive plan. Just means that things change. As our lives change on a daily basis, we need to try to respond to those changes in a way, and I feel that sending it to the public hearing will allow a further discussion, more detail, more facts to come out so that we can make a better decision.
Further discussion, anyone? Supervisor McCarthy?
No.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
No.
Supervisor Dunn?
Nay.
Supervisor Trout?
No.
Chair votes aye, motion fails.
Mr. Chairman,
The board, yes. Supervisor Lofton?
I make a motion to send the CPPA number 02-18 Boostown Road Area Amendment to public hearing.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Is there any discussion? Anyone? Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
No?
Supervisor Wells?
No.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Chair votes no, motion carries. We'll forward this one to public hearing. Thank you. Ms. Perkins, that will bring us to CPPA 0119.
Again, thank you. Back at your December 12th, 2018 meeting, the board directed staff to undertake an urban development area, or UDA, expansion and land use designation change for what is called the Blackburn Property Workforce Housing Request. Now, this amendment proposes to add 71.7 acres into the UDA and designate the site for residential workforce housing land uses.
Candace, could we take a break until, I'm having a hard time hearing you. That's okay.
It is.
Okay, thank you. Give the room a chance to clear. Thanks. Good points. Oh, well.
All right, Ms. Perkins, let's try again.
Thank you so much. Oh, there goes the...
The deputies will get it.
Yeah.
Now, this amendment proposes to add 71.7 acres into the urban development area and designate the site for residential workforce housing land uses. Now, the site is currently designated for industrial land uses, and it is split zoned RA M1. And that M1 piece is from a past industrial Blackburn rezoning, which is where the Trex buildings are currently. Now, the applicant is requesting this expansion and land use designation for the development of workforce housing that would provide affordable housing opportunities for residents of the community located within a reasonable proximity of workplaces in the community. Now, if I can direct you to the screen on your left, this is the current zoning map. You have Apple Valley Road that runs along the frontage of the property, Route 37, and Middle Road. As you can see, that property is outlined here in blue, and you have the zoning split pretty much right through the center of the property. And this is the current comprehensive plan adopted now. It shows the entire area of blue, which is a future industrial land use designation. And this is the requested change. It shows expanding the urban development area around that property and the designation of the workforce housing residential. Now, the text proposed for this amendment includes text regarding the affordable residential housing for the households that average 60% of the median household income. It promotes high-quality design that is complementary to the existing residential uses. It recommends limited heights to minimize the visual impact to the battlefield, and it recommends single-family detached housing units with no more than 4 units per acre. Now, the Comprehensive Plans and Programs Committee discussed this request at their February meeting. The committee recognizes that workforce housing is needed within the county. However, they expressed concern with the area this was proposed for. The CPPC did not support loss of planned industrial land uses and recommended denial of the project. The Planning Commission then discussed this request at their March 6th meeting. The commission also did not support the loss of industrial land uses for residential, and they also recommended denial of the request. So tonight, staff is seeking direction from the board as to whether this is ready to be sent forward to public hearing. Again, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions of Ms. Perkins, anyone? Anyone at all? Spec Creek? That's all it was. Supervisor Locke?
Mr. Chairman, given all the discussion so far about comprehensive plan amendments, we've heard a lot of talk also about workforce housing. And again, I'd like a lot more public input. I'd like to hear more about what people have to say. And so I'm going to make a motion that we send CPPA number 01-19, Blackburn Property Workforce Housing, to public hearing.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And a second. Further discussion? Anyone? Supervisor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to reiterate, in this situation, similar with the prior motion that was brought before the board, again, I think it requires some overriding reason to change the comprehensive plan, in my opinion. I agree with Vice Chairman Lofton that this should go forward to public hearing. But again, I think this is another steep hill that needs to be climbed in order to convince at least me and perhaps other board members that this is a project that not only is worthwhile, which I think that portion of it is worthwhile to try and keep costs low, have low-income housing or affordable housing, but also that this isn't going to create that much more of a burden on the community with new students in the school systems, unfunded burdens on fire, rescue, and police. So I'd like to hear those discussions as we move forward towards the public hearing. So I will support Vice Chairman Lofton's proposal.
Anyone else? Supervisor Dunn?
I'm going to have some comments that are similar to Mr. McCarthy's. This area is a combination of rural and M1. It's been for sale for approximately 10 years. There was a company that bought the area south of the Shockey Company that decided not to buy this because of the wetlands areas that are in that. If that's not the right term, Ms. Perkins, you can correct me. But there is water in there. So from an industrial use, the comment was this was inappropriate. The counter argument is, can you have smaller industrial areas in that same area or not? And it's been on the market for 10 years with no buyers. The people that are proposing to do this workforce housing, which I think is appropriate, I've had conversations with them that if this goes forward, I would expect them to pay 100% of the capital costs involved for those 200 homes. But I'm going to support the public hearing so we can have a further discussion on this, hear pros and cons, et cetera. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Lofton.
Mr. Chairman, as a member of the EDA, I certainly loathe the idea of taking land that might be suitable for manufacturing industry out of that particular zoning. But in this case, as Supervisor Dunn has pointed out, that the area is rife with wetlands, and to site manufacturing there takes quite an expense to mitigate those wetlands. This property, again, as Supervisor Dunn has pointed out, has been for sale for many years. In fact, there was part of that land that was taken as an option and sold as industrial land, and we see industry out there on the portion that was usable. Why the developer did not take all the land is quite obvious. Like I said, the expense to mitigate those wetlands is more than this property is worth. And so that's why I support the idea of workforce housing as a potential use for this, because that seems to be its highest and best use at this point.
Further discussion, anyone? Supervisor Wells.
Again, we're changing comprehensive plan, which is not one of the things I really like to look doing, although Supervisor Lofton has said life changes and you make different decisions on different days. Understand that. Next part is that 200, 250, 300 houses do make an impact on our fire departments, our police departments, and our schools, yet we're unwilling to. This is not going to bring more tax money, by the way. Houses don't do that, as we all well know. They don't pay for their fair share, and certainly this won't pay for its fair share. It's a rental subdivision, not an owner subdivision, so the landlord, like any other landlord, pays the taxes on it. I'm concerned deeply with the impact it's going to have, and I'm concerned that the values of the land around this particular housing development will be affected negatively also. I know it's a benefit. I know we need affordable housing. And speaking with one person the other day, we were talking, and one of the things was people in this county need a place to live. These houses won't be lived in by all Frederick County residents. They will have an influx of people coming in, so it'll be bringing new people into our county. Again, without looking ahead and saying how we're going to afford all this, kind of bothers me, and we seem to not be looking at that. We're looking at industrial. We're saying take out the industrial, which brings in income, and put in housing, which takes out income. So I will listen to a public hearing, but I doubt seriously that I can be in favor of this.
Further discussion, anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I would just echo Mr. Wells's comments that I certainly it would be hard for me to move forward with this, but I certainly, as the supervisor whose district it is in, would respect that we could have the public hearing and listen. But for me, unless we take 200 houses out of 12,000 plus that we've already approved in our community, and our schools are already busting at the seams and we're trying to play catch up, unless there's something dramatic, I don't know that I could support it either. But I certainly will respect the supervisor whose district it is in.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Trout.
I will be supportive of this workforce housing project. I obviously will be voting to forward it to public hearing. As someone who, when I came to this county as a new person and started teaching making $37,000 a year, I would have qualified for workforce housing, which is why I ended up having to live in an apartment with multiple roommates in order to just live. So I know that if I were a person that had children or other people to support, that I would not have been able to live on the income that I was given. So this is something that we desperately do need in our county. And so I'm looking forward to hearing more at this public hearing.
Further discussion, anyone? Are we ready? Motion is to forward to public hearing. Supervisor McCarthy?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Trout?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We'll forward that one to public hearing. All right, that'll bring us to board liaison reports. Are there any? Supervisor Lofton.
Mr. Chairman, the Extension Leadership Council met last week. They wanted to make a brief highlight of several things that came out of that meeting. Number one, this week, April 7th through the 13th is National Volunteer Week. The Extension relies heavily on volunteers for many programs. They participate as 4-H volunteers, Extension Master Gardener volunteers, Master Food volunteers, and the list goes on. And our Planning District 7, which includes Clark, Frederick, Page, Shenandoah, and Warren, in 2018, 1,000 volunteers gave up 38,143 hours of volunteer service. And I think that is very commendable, and thank all those who volunteered this year. Also, 4-H camp for ages 9 through 13 will be July 7th through 11th at the Northern Virginia 4-H camp in Front Royal. Registration for that is now open, and you should contact the Extension office for details and to register. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Supervisor Wells.
Yes, I'd like to publicly thank the Public Works staff, especially the landfill employees, for all of their preparation and their wonderful presentation at our community forum last week on the path of trash in Frederick County. We had good attendance, and it was a great event, and Mr. Tierney gave me some feedback, some very positive feedback from the folks that attended, and I was very appreciative of all the efforts that went into that. So thank you very much. Maybe we'll do another one next year, and more people will be able to attend that. Thank you.
I also received personally some very positive and excited responses to the event as well. Well done. Anyone else? Board liaison reports. All right. We'll move to citizen comments. This is the opportunity for you folks to comment on any issue that you might like to bring before the board. Ms. Kirk.
Thank you. George Samples, Redbud District. Mr. Chairman, Board, I'd like to comment on, and I apologize for not getting on the list for the Clorox discussion, but I want to take you back, deja vu all over again. In 2001, the Shockey Group wanted to develop a tech center, and it was turned down. What we have instead, we have Snowden, which I think approximately have about 800 homes there. And as Mr. Wells said, homes do not pay their fair share of taxes. It's the industry that pays the bill. And I'm just here to tell you that I'd like to see this go through. I think there'll be a benefit to the county. I know that a lot of people have mixed feelings about it. Not in my backyard type of thing. Because I know that the biggest budget amount goes to schools. 70% of your budget goes to schools. And of course, the homes you have to provide for the homes for the children to go to school. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Kirk? Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman DeHaven, members of the board. My name is Joy Kirk. I am a resident of the Back Creek District, and as my shirt says, I am a public education activist. I was asked today if I liked Dr. Sovine's proposed budget, and regretfully, I had to say no. I said no not because I do not support Dr. Sovine. I said no because I am tired of our school division having to only ask for critical needs, as well as our police, fire, and rescue being in the same position. I have to ask, when will we stop only focusing on critical needs? When will we begin to move forward? When will we begin to put my bright shining stars that I have in my classroom every year first? When will this happen? When will we begin to fund our future and look to what we need, not just critically, but to provide what is best? As someone who attended all but 3 school board meetings for the 6 years I was the Frederick County Education Association president, I can tell you I know how the school board budgeted their money and how it was spent. I heard all of the appropriations because I didn't miss a meeting. I was there. It was very transparent and clear to me. And when I didn't understand something that happened in a meeting, I had the opportunity to contact my elected official or speak to Dr. Lamont or Dr. Walk at some points, whoever I needed to speak to for clarification. It was a wonderful process of openness. As far as taxes go, if you own a home that's $100,000, which unfortunately that's affordable housing, at 56 cents, you were paying $560 a year. When our tax rate went up to 61 cents, your taxes went up to $610. That's a $50 increase, which means if you owned a $500,000 home, your taxes have only gone up $250. That is just over $20 a month. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to move us forward. We have communities around us who are raising their taxes 5 cents in a single year. It is time to budget. It is time to look forward. It is time to let my bright shining stars know that this activist and this educator is going to keep fighting until they are a priority for this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Brian Nuri. I'm from the Apakan District. I want to thank you guys for actually finally getting this long county-wide nightmare over with. It ain't what we needed, but at least is better than nothing at all. So now that we're moving forward, we have other issues that we're looking at. And one of the things that I'm concerned about is infrastructure in this county. If we're going to put a plant on Brucetown Road, I've been back that road. I used to live back there for like 6 months. It's a terrible road for just the residents. You get up near the quarry, good luck. And the sound all night long. I never slept a wink out there because of the constant roar of the machines, the horns. It's amazing how much you can hear them working. Going up 11 every day when I come to work to Winchester. Yes, I work in Winchester, I'm sorry. Going through Kernstown is a nightmare. It widens, it narrows, it widens, it narrows, yet we've known, again, I'm going to harp on this string, for 20 years. We're growing. We need to have better roads. We need to have more of this done. And I want to see us going forward looking into these solutions as well as looking into bringing new industry into this county. The housing may not may not pay its way, but the housing supports the industry. Because basically, I just took an economics class, so I'm now an expert, like y'all know. More people means more income. More income means more revenue. More revenue means more people, and it's a nice little cycle that the government likes to see. I'm a tax preparer by trade. I know what the government wants. They want to see nice families that are producing children, because children become taxpayers, and then we can pay more bills. It's been also said tonight that we have to cut a lot of fat. I don't really see where a lot of fat's going. I mean, I don't have any earmarks in the thing benefiting me personally just because Mr. Dunn likes me a lot. You know, I haven't gotten a favor from Miss McCann just to say, here, you know, here's $100, you know, just do this. I don't see where the fat is. We're a pretty lean running county. We're paying our bills. And if as a previous speaker has said before, if we're going down a socialist path, well, I guess I'm going to be a socialist tomorrow and pay my insurance bill, because, you know, that's what being an adult is paying your bills. We're a county full of adults. We need to pay our bills. And if it means having to, as Ms. Kirk said, go up $20 a year, I asked my dad about it. He said, I just pay the bill when it comes in the mail. I don't worry about the politics behind it because I know I need to pay it. My dad and I, we just like to pay our bills and move on with life, and we need to do that. Thank you very much for passing this budget, and let's see if we can start playing the catch-up game that we should have started 20 years ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone? Any subject? Last call. We'll close the public comment portion. Board of Supervisors comments. Are there any?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Trout.
So I just need to give a little shout out to Parks and Rec. Mr. Reddy and I suffered through the inaugural trail race for autism that was at Sharando Park this last weekend. I ran 4 miles. I did it in under an hour. Thank you. However, Mr. Reddy was a little faster than me, but it was an excellent race. There was a great turnout, so kudos to Parks and Rec.
Thank you. Anyone else? Supervisor Dunn.
Just want to make one comment on this growth that is occurring here. I think almost every person on this board was not involved in the growth that occurred or the decisions that were made 15, 18, 20 years ago. And so most of, if not all, of the people on this board are faced with a housing issue, a growth issue. We're trying to solve a problem. So when you see social media comments, et cetera, that this board should have done A, B, and C, this board was not the entity that was doing that. We're trying to solve problems. We may solve that differently, but we're trying to solve a problem. Just recognize that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have the great privilege of serving on the Shenandoah Apple Blossom Festival Board. I just want to remind everyone that 3 weeks from now, an invasion is coming to Frederick County and Winchester. It's been happening for almost 100 years now. There are some great aspects of the festival that I would encourage you to get involved in. It's been a tradition in our community for a long time. I have said often from this podium that I think we need to honor the traditions, the good things about our traditions that we have in this community, and look for solutions for the future. I think there are some good traditions within the Shenandoah Apple Blossom Festival that we should be proud of, and I would encourage folks to get involved in that 3 weeks from now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Slaughter.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I think many of you all have probably had an issue, but most recently I've had a issue in Stonewall that has resurfaced, and we have an issue with noise. I would like to make a motion that we bring our current code in line with the most recent Supreme Court of Virginia's decision, and so that we have the ability to enforce the code, and that our law enforcement people can go and make some changes in this area. So therefore, I would like to put a motion on the floor that the board refer back to the Code and Ordinance Committee the proposed revisions to Chapter 118 of the County Code, the noise ordinance, that the committee forwarded to the board last year for the committee again to consider and make a recommendation to the board for corrections to the noise ordinance to restore the enforceability of the noise ordinance in light of the Supreme Court of Virginia's decision in Tanner versus City of Virginia Beach.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second. Discussion, anyone?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Dunn?
I share Mrs. Slaughter's concerns, and I had a conversation with our county attorney, Mr. Williams, to see if we can bring that issue forward for some type of action in the month of May. We've gone through a budget process. He asked for some time, which is recognizable. So I like Mrs. Slaughter. I'd be glad to go and support that and see what we can do. Thank you.
May I just make one last?
Yes, please.
I don't know what the time frame can be as far as when code and ordinances meet. I might defer to Supervisor Trout, but obviously any expedition of this request would certainly be appreciated.
Will do.
Don't know that we should rush to judgment on code, but
well, I would like
it'll be an interesting discussion.
I would like it to come back to the board as expeditiously as it could happen.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We'll forward to code and ordinance. Anyone else? Board of Supervisors comments. Anyone? Vice Chairman Loft?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. We'll stand adjourned. Thank everyone for their time and attention and their input.